The office was unusually silent for a Monday morning. The sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, glinting off the polished mahogany desk where the millionaire, Alexander Hayes, sat reviewing contracts. His phone rang sharply, cutting through the quiet like a knife. That must be the new investor, he thought, reaching for it. But the voice that answered wasn't what he expected. His assistant, Natasha, picked up the line and spoke in Russian. The words rushed out, fast and urgent. Alexander froze, his brow furrowing. He didn't speak Russian, yet there was a tension in her tone he couldn't ignore. Something about the rhythm, the pauses, the clipped urgency, made him sit upright. He leaned in, straining to catch anything familiar. "Natasha, what is going on?" he asked cautiously. She looked at him, hesitation written across her face. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the receiver. Finally, she hung up and turned to him, voice barely above a whisper. "It's about the deal, Alexander," she said. "It's complicated." Complicated was an understatement, he realized instantly. Alexander had built his fortune over decades, navigating deals and negotiations that often pushed people to the edge. He had seen deception before, but there was something different in her eyes now, fear, mixed with guilt. "What do you mean, complicated?" he asked, trying to mask the rising panic in his chest. She swallowed hard and glanced at the office door, ensuring no one else could hear. "I just overheard something. On the phone. They're discussing the merger, but not in a way I expected. It's not official yet, but it's risky. Alexander, they might be planning to cut you out." Alexander's mind raced. He had trusted his team, his contacts, even Natasha herself, implicitly. But the sudden revelation made him question everything. His heart started beating faster, each thump echoing the warning in his mind. How much did she know? How much had he missed? He stood abruptly, pacing the room. The city skyline outside seemed less like a view and more like a maze of dangers he couldn't see yet. Every deal had risks, yes, but this was personal. Someone was moving behind the scenes, and he had no idea who. Natasha's gaze followed him, guilty and anxious. "I didn't mean for you to hear this firsthand," she said quietly. "I didn't want to alarm you without proof." Alexander stopped and turned to her, meeting her eyes. "You did the right thing. But we need to act fast. Every second counts." He grabbed his coat from the rack, already planning his next move. Outside, the streets of New York were alive with the usual rush of cars, pedestrians, and neon lights. But to him, the city felt different now, more dangerous, more calculated. One wrong step, and millions could vanish. As he exited the building, his phone buzzed again, another unknown number flashing on the screen. Alexander hesitated, then answered. The voice was calm, deliberate, and unmistakably confident. He didn't know it yet, but this call would change everything. The game had begun. Alexander Hayes stepped into the bustling streets of New York, his mind racing faster than the cars that honked around him. The Russian words Natasha had spoken still echoed in his head, each syllable a puzzle he couldn't solve. He clenched his jaw, aware that every person passing by could be part of the web now threatening his empire. The city felt sharper somehow, more dangerous, like it was watching him. He pulled out his phone and called his attorney, Marcus, a man known for his calm under pressure. Marcus answered immediately. "Alexander, what's wrong? You sound tense." Alexander's eyes scanned the crowded sidewalk. "Marcus, listen carefully. There's a complication with the merger. I overheard something on the phone. Something that wasn't supposed to reach me. I need you to dig, now. Every document, every account linked to the deal. I don't care how long it takes." Marcus's voice was steady, but the concern in it was unmistakable. "I'll start immediately. Keep me updated if anything else happens." Alexander ended the call and continued walking, though he wasn't sure where he was going. He needed to think. He replayed the Russian phrases Natasha had said in his mind. Urgency, secrecy, a hidden danger. The words, complicated, and dangerous, kept repeating, pounding in his chest like a warning bell. He realized this was bigger than just a bad deal. Someone was maneuvering behind the scenes, and he might have been their target from the beginning. A vibration in his pocket made him jump. Another call. Unknown number. He answered cautiously. "You heard everything," a smooth, controlled voice said. "Yes, and now?" Alexander replied, forcing calm into his tone. "The merger isn't what it seems," the caller continued. "Accounts are being moved. Names are being manipulated. You've been set up to lose." Alexander's stomach tightened. He knew enough about business to sense betrayal when it came smelling like smoke before the fire. "Who is this? Why are you telling me?" he demanded. "You have allies you don't realize," the voice said cryptically. "Meet me tonight, alone. If you want to keep what you've built, you'll come." The line went dead. Alexander stared at the phone, heart hammering. Alone. He thought of Natasha, who had been loyal, and yet she had been caught in the middle of this unseen war. He had no choice but to trust this mysterious caller, at least for now. Every second counted. He hailed a cab and gave the address the voice had instructed. The city lights flickered across his tense face, reflecting in his eyes that had seen more than their fair share of high-stakes games. Every step, every turn, felt like a trap. But he refused to be a pawn. As the cab sped through Manhattan's streets, Alexander reviewed the potential threats. Business partners, competitors, even old friends, anyone could have a motive. The Russian phone call wasn't just a warning, it was a lifeline, giving him a chance to act before the trap closed completely. By the time the cab stopped outside the darkened cafe, he had made a decision. Tonight, he would uncover the truth, expose the betrayal, and reclaim control. No one would manipulate Alexander Hayes, not tonight, not ever. Alexander Hayes stepped out of the cab and scanned the quiet streets. The cafe was tucked between two old brick buildings, its sign dimly lit, almost hidden from view. The city around him seemed to blur, the usual clamor fading into background noise. Tonight, it was only him, the shadows, and the secret that could decide the fate of his empire. He entered the cafe cautiously. A faint smell of coffee and polished wood filled the air, but there was no one in sight except for a figure sitting in a corner booth. The mysterious caller. Alexander's pulse quickened, and he felt the familiar tension of being watched, evaluated. Every step toward the table felt measured, deliberate. "You heard everything," the figure said, looking up. Calm, confident, with eyes that seemed to pierce through him. Alexander nodded. "Yes. Now what?" The figure slid a folder across the table. Alexander's hands trembled slightly as he opened it. Inside were documents, spreadsheets, and notes revealing a web of betrayal he hadn't imagined. Hidden accounts, falsified reports, and plans to systematically cut him out of the merger, every detail meticulously laid out. He absorbed the information, heart pounding, mind racing. The magnitude of the plot was staggering. Allies he had trusted implicitly were implicated. Names he recognized, numbers he had authorized, timelines he had overlooked, they were all weaponized against him. It was precise, ruthless, and personal. "Why are you helping me?" Alexander asked, narrowing his eyes. "Because not everyone plays dirty," the voice replied. "Some of us still value loyalty. I warned you because there's a chance to turn the tide, but you have to act carefully. One misstep and it's over." Alexander closed the folder and leaned back, exhaling slowly. The city lights outside flickered across the cafe windows, reflecting the weight of the decision he had to make. He realized now that power wasn't just money, it was information, timing, and strategy. He glanced at the assistant who had followed him quietly, standing near the entrance with guilt and fear etched on her face. Natasha's loyalty had put her at risk, yet she had chosen to warn him. He needed her, and he needed to act fast. "Every move counts," the figure continued. "Watch your contacts, double-check your numbers, and trust no one blindly. You have enemies within and outside. Prepare for confrontation. The merger is just the beginning." Alexander absorbed the gravity of the warning. His mind mapped strategies, contingencies, and countermeasures. He felt the adrenaline surge, the familiar thrill of high-stakes maneuvering. This wasn't just business anymore, it was survival. He stood up, folder in hand, and faced the mysterious contact. "Thank you. I won't waste this chance. But I need names, timelines, everything I can use to protect what's mine." The contact nodded. "You'll get what you need, but you must move carefully. The next 48 hours will decide everything." Alexander left the cafe with renewed focus. The city streets felt sharper now, each shadow a potential threat, each passerby a possible ally, or enemy. He was aware of every detail, every risk, every move required precision. The call in Russian, the warning, the documents, they had changed everything. Tonight, he wouldn't just protect his fortune. He would confront betrayal head-on and reclaim control over the empire that had taken decades to build. Failure was not an option. Alexander Hayes returned to his penthouse office, the city skyline glowing behind him like a battlefield map. He spread the documents from the cafe across his desk, reviewing every account, email, and timeline meticulously. Each name was a potential traitor, each number a clue to the sabotage. The Russian call, Natasha's warning, and the anonymous tip had given him a lifeline, but it was up to him to turn it into victory. He dialed his attorney, Marcus, who had already begun reviewing the accounts for anomalies. "Marcus, I've got the details now. Cross-reference everything with our internal audits, and make sure no one can move funds without detection. I want full control restored tonight." Marcus's calm, assured voice was a steady anchor. "Understood, Alexander. We'll lock it down." Next, Alexander called Natasha into the office. She entered hesitantly, aware of the tension in the room. "You stayed loyal," he said quietly. "And I'll need you to continue being vigilant. Nothing gets past you tonight." Natasha nodded, determination replacing the fear in her eyes. Together, they began coordinating calls, meetings, and digital traces, tightening security and exposing the manipulation. Every contact Alexander had now fell under scrutiny. Every financial move was traced. He realized how close he had been to losing everything, and the adrenaline coursing through him sharpened his focus. Hours passed. Midnight approached, and Alexander prepared for the final confrontation. He called the rival executive behind the scheme, a man who had once smiled as a friend. "We need to talk," Alexander said, voice calm but edged with authority. The executive arrived at the penthouse under the pretense of negotiation. Alexander let him speak first, laying out his usual charm, the easy confidence of a billionaire used to controlling outcomes. But when he handed over the folder of evidence, the executive's confident smirk faded. Each account, every falsified document, and every secret transfer was traced, documented, and undeniable. "You've underestimated me," Alexander said, meeting the man's eyes with steel. "This empire isn't just money. It's strategy, loyalty, and timing. You thought you could take it from me quietly. You were wrong." The executive's face went pale. You can't. "I already have," Alexander replied, calm, unflinching. "And now, you'll make it right, or face the consequences." By the early hours, the betrayal was fully exposed. The rival executive was neutralized from the deal, internal accounts secured, and every manipulated transaction reversed. Natasha stood by his side, pride replacing the lingering fear. Alexander finally allowed himself a moment to exhale, the tension easing from his shoulders. Looking out over the city from his office, he reflected on the night's events. Power wasn't just wealth, it was insight, vigilance, and decisiveness. One phone call in Russian, a cryptic warning, and a mysterious contact had saved him from losing everything. Alexander knew one truth now: his empire was safe, but the game had changed. He had survived the night of betrayal, but he would never be caught off guard again. The stakes had risen, and he would meet them head-on. Tonight, Alexander Hayes was not just a billionaire, he was a strategist, a survivor, and a man fully in control of his destiny.